Have you ever wondered how many people go unnoticed every day, even right before our eyes? In a world where appearance is worth more than essence, some people are treated as if they did not exist. But what if just one of these people, ignored and underestimated, is the only one capable of preventing a tragedy? What if the hero everyone seeks is the one who no one sees? How many times do we judge someone only for the uniform you wear? What if that security guard at the entrance of a building knew more about protection than an entire armed squad? The truth is simple. The value of someone is not how much it shines to the world, but what it is able to do when no one is looking. This is the story of an invisible man in the eyes of the elite, but impossible to ignore when the danger appeared. Dwayne Johnson was not famous at that airport. At least not that day. He wore the black safety uniform with wide shoulders and firm but always discreet posture. No one gave him good morning, no respect look. For VIP passengers, he was just part of the furniture, an obstacle to be avoided. But he saw everything, each gesture, each suspicious deviation. And that day, he felt something strange in the air. Maybe it was just instinct. Or maybe it was an experience of those who ever saw the war closely, even if no one else remembers that today. In the midst of all the futility of the luxury lobby, a 7-year-old boy stared at him with curious eyes. Miguel, a boy who, even so small, saw more than the adults around. As his father, an arrogant tycoon, boasted at his fortune, his son approached. Dwayne, as if he knew who he really was, and in that little gesture, a child's gaze to an invisible man, something began to change. Dwayne remained standing by the side emergency door. His eyes did not stop a second. He watched, analyzed, recorded everything. There was something in the way 3 men with uniformed technicians entered the hangar moments before, something that only those who were on the field could see. But he knew that even if he reported, no one would hear. The radio stuck to the chest was static. "Central area at rest. All quiet so far." The voice of his colleague sounded carefree. Dwayne pressed the button and spoke low, firmly. "I ask additional check in Hangar 2. It has unusual movement. Military posture technicians, one with wrong boots." Silence. "Are you watching a lot of police series, Johnson?" Answered, his mocking voice followed by a muffled laugh in the background. He hung up the radio and observed again. There was no room for vanity or ego dispute. I had seen this kind of contempt before, in missions where those who seemed most harmless were the ones who knew the most. But now he was just a security guard, hired by shift. No insignia, no patent, no past. Invisible. Right ahead, Miguel appeared. Again, he had escaped his father's gaze and walked with the toy plane between the lounge tables. He smiled when he saw Dwayne, ran to him. "Did you see this? There is a jet with 4 turbines out there. He looks like a flying shark." "I saw." "Yes, but the pilot is not even as brave as you, Miguel." "Me? Why?" "Because you are the only one who had the courage to talk to me." Miguel gave a shy but proud smile. Dwayne crouched to his height and adjusted the boy's cap, turning the tab back. "Now yes. More prepared than a lot of adult here." Miguel's father, Mr. Valente, emerged as an irritated storm. "Miguel, how many times have I said not to get out of me? What are you doing with this security? He was showing me the plane. He's here to open doors and be silent, not to teach." Dwayne got up in silence. It was not the first time I heard this kind of comment. The father pulled Miguel by the arm, ignoring any protest of the boy. The boy turned back, making a hidden signal with the little plane in his hands. A small gesture, almost invisible, but Dwayne saw. Meanwhile, more guests arrived. Celebrities, influencers, politicians. Everyone circulated through the environment as if they were on a red carpet. Flash, forced smiles, social networking filters. The other security guards laughed and commented, on people's clothes, taking hidden photos. One of them, Alfredo, poked Dwayne with the elbow. "You should smile more, man. No one here likes security with action movie face. That's why most only make figuration. Relax, big. Here." "Never happens." Dwayne didn't answer. He looked at the side. Corridors, where false technicians had passed. I felt the same pressure I had already felt before ambushes. Something didn't fit. They were not there to fix anything. Later, when she went through one of the side access, she saw a black briefcase against a power cabinet. It was too strange to be there. He looked heavy and had torn stickers marks, as if someone had tried to erase his origin. He played on the radio once more. "Suspicious case in Corridor 3. I request immediate technical inspection. Johnson, are you trying to be promoted to the investigator?" The answer came in a mocking tone. "I'm trying to prevent you from becoming statistics." The radio fell silent. No teams have been sent. No alarms sounded. Dwayne stopped for a moment and watched the reflection of her own face on the dark glass of the wall. There, in that reflection, I saw a trained man, ready, attentive, but for everyone else in that place, he was just the big guy with black, silent property who served to maintain appearances. Later, near the cafeteria, he heard one of the executives commenting, "Who hired that closet? He looks more like a MMA fighter than a security guard." "I think you're a former military man, but it must have been dismissed. It's there, serving the rich coffee now." The words arrived like thorns, but Dwayne did not react. He knew who it was. I knew what I was able, and I didn't need to prove it to anyone, at least not until necessary. Hours passed. The presentation event of a new line of luxury aircraft began in the center of the terminal. Lights were lowered. A holographic projection took over the environment. All the eyes were turned to the stage, but Dwayne didn't look ahead. It was turned to the side, for service entry, where he saw a door open discreetly. Two men, again of technical uniform, passed with bulky backpacks. His hands were sweaty. They avoided eye contact. They walked too fast. Dwayne played the radio. 2 suspects entering the server area. Large backpacks, no visible identification. "Turn off this radio, Johnson. You're giving a fake alarm again." "This won't end well." "What will end is your place here if you continue in this paranoia." He released the button and remained, motionless for a second. I could choose to ignore. I could accept what they said, but I couldn't. The boy, Miguel, was still inside. Children were never safe in places that looked too safe. He knew this from his own experience. His eyes searched the hall. Miguel was now sitting next to his father, visibly bored, playing with the little plane on his lap. The boy looked at him once more, a second only, but Dwayne understood. It was as if Miguel said without words, "You see what no one else sees." And he was. "If it's all right, I can follow the next part, which will address the surprise attack. And the child in danger, with the same level of detail and emotion. Want since I advance, or prefer to revise something before?" The bluish light of holographic projection still danced on the glass walls of the lobby when the first strange sound broke the environment. An acute snap from the side hangar, as metal hoping. No one seemed to notice. Laughter drowned out the noise, and the eyes were fixed on the sparkling images of the new jet being displayed. Dwayne, step ahead, feeling the weight of the silence that came before the storm. That was not part of the show. By the corner of his eye, he saw the 2 dark backpacks to position themselves near one of the main columns. It was not a place of technicians. They exchanged a quick look and squeezed something on their wrist. A small, almost imperceptible device. Dwayne began to walk toward them, the hand near the belt. No one else moved. No one but him. The sound that came next broke the floor under the feet of all. A tremendous explosion shook the hangar. Glasses burst, the ceiling vibrated, screams echoed through the terminal. Dwayne threw herself over a group of passengers, protecting them with her own body while shrapnel flew like razors. Alarms started playing, but security systems seemed to fail in sequence. Smoke invaded the environment with impressive speed. In the midst of chaos, the first armed men emerged. Black masks, heavy weaponry, coordinated movements. They knew what they were doing. They took the lobby as if they had already rehearsed it 1,000 times. Official security guards caught off guard were overthrown in seconds. Some tried to react, but were easily neutralized. Common training was not enough. Dwayne saw Alfredo was dragged by one of the unconscious invaders, and another colleague falls while trying to reach the radio. People shouted, dragged on the floor, hid under luxurious tables. The glamour gave way to despair. Rich and powerful, now they were shaking on the same floor where they once paraded with arrogance. Dwayne crawled to the side wall using columns as coverage. His gaze swept the environment in search of Miguel. He spotted the boy near a fallen table, looking around, terrified, with the little plane still in his hands. His father was on the other side of the lobby, being kept on the floor by 2 armed terrorists. He shouted, "Miguel! Don't leave from there! Miguel!" Miguel, too small to completely understand what was happening, began to move slowly, trying to crawl to where he thought he was safe. One of the terrorists saw him. Dwayne fired toward the boy, crossing chaos like thunder. He knocked down a chair, deflected from a flame table, and threw himself between Miguel and the invader, pushing the boy behind a shattered glass partition. A shot passed close to his head. "It is lowered, closes your eyes and does not leave," he shouted to Miguel, his firm but urgent voice. The invader pointed the gun at him. Dwayne did not hesitate. He grabbed the man's leg and pulled him hard to the ground. The gun fired upwards. Dwayne immobilized him with a dry blow to his neck, using his own strength and technique. The sound of the fight was drowned out for more screams and shots from other parts of the terminal. He took Miguel in his arms and ran to the side exit. There was no safe route. The main area was dominated. The radio in the belt was silent. Hacked communicators, total isolation. Dwayne entered a maintenance corridor. Lights blinked. Sirens echoed in the distance. He stopped for a moment, leaned against Miguel on the wall and crouched down. "It's okay, Small. I'm here with you. No one will hurt you." I was afraid. I saw fire. I thought you had... Shh! You were very brave, but now I need you to trust me, okay? Miguel nodded with tears in his eyes. Smoke was also beginning to invade that sector. Dwayne took him on his lap again and followed a narrow corridor leading to the technical rooms, a cable maze, ventilation pipelines and power boxes. Along the way, he saw 2 more security bodies. One of them still breathed, wounded. "How many are it?" asked Dwayne, crouching beside him. "At least 12. They entered 3 different points. They put explosives in the exits. They are going to the control center now." "Understood." He left the man in a safe position and continued with Miguel in his arms. The child clung to his uniform as if it were his last shelter. The way to the technical control room was a nightmare. Closed iron doors, poorly lit runners, and heavy steps in the distance. Dwayne knew the logic of these attacks. He knew they were seeking to isolate the system, take control of the tower, keep their hostages as a bargaining chip. He found a side room with released access signal. He entered quickly, closed the door and locked it. Inside, there were electrical equipment, extinguishers, evacuation maps, and a secondary monitoring screen. Some runners were still visible by the old cameras. Miguel sat in a corner, tremendous. Dwayne knelt in front of him, holding the boy's shoulders. "You need to be strong now. I'll take you from here, I promise." "Are they going to hurt my father?" "Not if he gets to the floor. They don't want to kill. Not yet. But they want power. And they use the fear for that." Dwayne got up and analyzed the monitors. He saw a group of terrorists moving toward the control tower. Another was positioning boxes in the main accesses, explosives. He also saw that 2 of them went back to the area where he had saved Miguel. They were scouring every corner. I knew I didn't have much time, needed to change strategy. I couldn't escape. I couldn't ask for help. The only way out was to go towards the danger. He took a metal tube from the wall, tied a portable extinguisher with tape and prepared a makeshift trap. He opened a ventilation grid, removed Miguel carefully and put him in. You'll crawl to the end of the tunnel and wait there. Don't go out until I get back. It's going to be tight, but you can. You said it was brave, remember? But, and you? I'm going to make noise. A long time to leave. You alone. Miguel nodded, holding the little plane tightly. He entered the duct and disappeared into the darkness. Dwayne took a deep breath, pulled the handle of the makeshift extinguisher. He positioned himself behind the door. He heard the steps approaching. He told mentally, 3, 2, 1. The door opened with violence. 2 gunmen entered. The explosion of the makeshift extinguisher created a white and blinding cloud. Dwayne jumped, attacking accurately and brutality. One of the men fell, with a kick in the chest. The other tried to react, but was disarmed with a blow to his arm and knocked his head against the wall. Without wasting time, Dwayne took their radios, adjusted the frequencies and listened to Alpha, dominated tower team. Hostages under control. Verification in Industry 3 incomplete. Something wrong with camera 22? He smiled, injured, panting, but more determined than ever. What was to come would require everything from him. Silence inside the technical room was dense, almost suffocating. Dwayne, now covered with soot and dry blood running down the forehead, was just tied. The 2 unconscious invaders, with electric wire torn from the wall. He breathed with difficulty. The impact of the latest blows charged its price, but it was not yet time to stop. He approached the ventilation duct and whispered, "Miguel, are you right inside?" The boy's weak voice answered, muffled by the metal. I'm waiting. I'm afraid." "Fear is normal, but you're safe now. And you're not alone, get it?" "I got it." Dwayne ran a hand over his face, trying to focus. "I needed to make quick decisions. The boy could not stay in that tunnel for long. With the impaired ventilation system, the air was beginning to rare. If the invaders discovered the hiding place, there would be no time for a second chance." He returned to the monitors. Only 2 cameras still worked, 22, which showed a corridor near the room of electrical panels, and 17, which displayed part of the command tower, now occupied by the terrorists. The conversations captured by the radio indicated that they were installing a remote control system for the explosives. They planned to detonate the exits if someone tried to invade. Everything pointed to a larger plan than simple kidnapping. They wanted to paralyze everything, perhaps forcing an international negotiation. Miguel coughing inside the duct. A short sound, but enough to light a warning on Dwayne. He approached quickly. "I'm going to get you out now. We need a safer place." Carefully, he released the duct lid and pulled Miguel firmly. The boy was shaking. His eyes were red and his breath rapidly. "I want my mother and my father." "I know, but to get to them we need to go through another hard piece. You can?" Miguel hesitated, but then squeezed the toy plane against his chest and nodded. Dwayne took him in his arms again. I knew I couldn't walk with him for a long time without attracting attention. He needed to leave him safely and return to the front line. But where? He opened the emergency map nailed to the wall and drew a route to an old telecommunications room, disabled for years and forgotten by almost everyone. The place had reinforced walls and access by hidden hatch. There, Miguel would be out of visual reach. With firm and silent steps, he crossed the dark corridors with the boy on his lap. The floor trembled from time to time with small distance impacts. The terrorists were testing the bombs, arriving in the room, forced the lock with an iron bar, and entered. Dust and mold took over the place, cut cables hung from the ceiling. But there was shelter. Made Miguel sit on an old rug. He took a flashlight and left by his side, along with a thermal blanket. "You'll be here, Miguel. No matter what happens, you don't open this door until I get back." "But what if they think me?" "They won't, and if they get close, you'll be surprised at them." Dwayne positioned improvised traps in the only two possible entrances of the room. Tensioned wires, prepared extinguishers, bottles with flammable liquid trapped with elastics. Nothing sophisticated, but enough to give time. Before leaving, he knelt one last before Miguel. "I need you to believe me, just as you believed there in the lounge, remember? Are you going back?" "I'm going, because I promised you. And I never break a promise." He closed the door and locked with a steel cable stuck inside that Miguel could only release if he were him on the other side. He walked the darker corridor now. The pain in the shoulder throbbed. Adrenaline was beginning to dissipate, giving way to the weight of decisions. But there was still much to do. Terrorists were in control, or thought they were. Miguel was safe, for now. But time was short, too short. And Dwayne Johnson, the invisible security man no one wanted to hear, was about to become the worst mistake of those armed men. Dwayne moved like a shadow between the narrow and semi-illuminated corridors. The radio of the terrorist he had taken, on Chia-coded messages at irregular intervals. He listened and mentally wrote down every information. His steps were silent, precise, like those of a man he had trained to survive in hell. Shoulder pain, heavy breath, blood on his shirt. None of this mattered now. Miguel was hiding, but the time to keep him safely was short. The terrorists were organizing the hostages for a mass movement. Dwayne needed to act before everything was out of reach. He went through one of the secondary maintenance rooms and found an emergency backpack. Inside were tools, an extra flashlight, insulating tape, cables. He improvised a homemade grenade based on a pressure sensor, and one of the loads he had removed from one of the invaders' failed traps. He didn't need weapons of war. I needed intelligence. He rose silently to the technical mezzanine who gave vision to the central area of the lobby. It was all under enemy control, kneeling hostages, covered eyes, strategically positioned masked men. But what caught his attention was the movement in the background. Two invaders were installing a receiver next to the central electrical board. There was the core of the bomb's remote control. He came down carefully to a side ladder. He used a ventilation duct to approach that point without being seen. Wherever it went, it left small traps prepared, straightened wires, objects positioned for falling, makeshift blocks with bars and pieces of metal. As he approached the technicians, he waited for the exact moment. One of the men was distracted by typing. On the control panel, Dwayne jumped from the top, knocking them down with the same brute force she used on the field years ago. A dry blow, a quick strangulation. No loud sound. Before their radio could issue any warning, he had already changed the frequency. Now, with access to the system, he saw something that made him freeze. 11 minutes to activate a protocol of partial destruction. All external exits from the airport would be exploded. He thought of Miguel. He thought how many were still alive among the hostages. And then he decided that shadow game ended up there. Following the lower tunnels, he approached the control tower, now converted into the invaders' barracks. 5 men kept the entrance. He had 2 makeshift explosives and a plan. He threw the first load to the opposite side of the entrance, making enough noise to distract 2 of them. He then advanced on the back of the other 3, using the metal tube as an extension of his own body. Precise, short, without hesitation. The main door of the tower was broken into the impact of Dwayne's shoulder. Inside, one of the group's leaders pointed a gun at a tower employee, forcing her to execute commands. The tension was at the limit. Loose her now. Dwayne's voice filled the environment like muffled thunder. The man turned fast, surprised. The weapon fired, running close to Dwayne's arm. He didn't stop. He advanced hard, colliding against the enemy's body and knocking him brutally. The fight was short, the punches dry. The terrorist fell unconscious. Dwayne helped the employee. "Get up. I can disable the system here. You just need to cover me. Do that, now." With it restarting manual commands, the central system began to lose control of external devices. Some red lights became yellow. The count stopped in 5 seconds. Dwayne took a radio and said in a firm tone, "This is the last warning. If any of you try to get out hostage, you won't reach the door. You have 3 minutes to drop your weapons and lie on the floor." There was silence, then static, then an answer. "Who are you?" "I'm the man you haven't seen coming, and I'm the last one who will see if you don't obey." He turned off the radio. He took an access key and ran back to the sector where he had left Miguel. Each step was urgent, each breath looked shorter. It has passed through. Corridors now covered with smoke. He found a terrorist trying to hide. He knocked him a direct kick. He went through one of the traps he had prepared. One of the extinguishers exploded, overthrowing 2 hooded men who were on their way to the tower. When he arrived at the door of the telecommunications room, he knocked 3 times, a combined signal. "It's me. It's all right." The lock turned inside. The door opened slowly. Miguel jumped in his arms, crying but relieved. "I knew you would go back. And you held firmly. You're braver than you might think." He took the boy in his arms. Now it was time to leave. But there was something that still needed to be done. Emergency lights still oscillated as red ghosts on the cold floor of the airport. A thin layer of smoke hovered in the air, mixed with the acidic smell of gunpowder and burnt metal. Everywhere there were marks of destruction, revived tables, shattered glasses, fallen panels. But at the center of all this, there was a lone figure who walked with slow, firm steps, with a dormant boy in his arms. Dwayne Johnson advanced between the wreckage as if he carried his own world on his chest. Miguel, his face dirty and his fingers still clinging to the toy plane, slept with his head against the shoulder of the man that no one had noticed early in the day. The East Wing automatic doors, now deactivated, were forcibly opened by firefighters and police who had been able to access after the block was disarmed. When they saw the figure approaching in the dimness, they hesitated. They expected a tactical team, a uniformed commander, someone with a badge of authority. But what emerged was a common security, with the uniform torn, the eyes marked by tiredness and dry blood on the arm. "We have a man coming with a child," shouted one agent. "Is he armed?" asked another. But the light was enough to reach Miguel's face, to change everything. The boy was the son of the technology tycoon, the same one that had been shown in the news hours earlier, screaming desperate for help between the hostages. Dwayne stopped before gunmen and just said, "He's fine. But you need a doctor." A paramedic ran to him. Dwayne knelt and passed Miguel carefully to the rescuer's arms. The boy opened his eyes, sleepy, confused, but soon saw Dwayne's face above him. He smiled weakly. "You came back." Dwayne nodded with a slight head movement. "I said I would come back." Miguel's father appeared soon after, pushing police and reporters on the way. When he saw his son in the arms of the paramedics, he fell to his knees. "Miguel, my God!" he shouted, his eyes teary. Miguel stretched his arm and pointed to Dwayne. "It was him. He saved me, Father. He came back for me, even hurt. He promised." Everyone's eyes turned to Dwayne. For the first time since he stepped on that airport, everyone saw him. The man that no one looked at, who was ignored between the luxury corridors and the cochichos of colleagues, now became the center of everything. Reporters began to approach. Cameras were pointed to him, extended microphones. The questions came, like gusts. What is your name? Are you from the police? Did you act alone? How did you manage to defeat the terrorists? Dwayne was silent for a few seconds, watching the people around him. Curious, scared, admired eyes. He sighed, then replied, "Dwayne Johnson. I am shift security. It was here since 7 in the morning. But how did you get it all this alone? Someone needed to do something. And I was there. The boy needed help. The rest came later. The national security agents, who have just taken control of the tower, approached with impeccable uniforms and serious countenance. One of them reached for Dwayne. "We know what you did. We have internal cameras, hostage reports, and radio recordings. If it weren't for you, we would be gathering bodies now. I just didn't want to see one more life being lost by omission." The doctors wanted to serve him, but he refused. He said there were wounded people who needed help before him. He went through the other hostages and helped them get up. He supported an employee with a twisted ankle, led a lady to the paramedics, calmed a lost child who cried for her parents. People began to thank, some in silence, some with tears. Mr. Valenti himself, visibly shaken, approached Dwayne with hesitation. For a moment, it seemed to simply thank and move away. But then he reached out, his face covered with repentance. "I was an idiot. I looked at you as if you didn't value anything, but you saved my son, and it saved me too, from myself." Dwayne squeezed his hand firmly. "What matters now is that you don't forget what he has taught you today." He? Miguel? He saw what no one wanted to see. Outside, helicopters flew over the area. Vehicles, ambulances, and special units occupied the access roads. But inside, the true story spread with mouth to mouth, among the survivors, among those who had shrunk with fear, and now they had someone to thank. The next morning, the news stamped headlines such as "Anonymous Security Frustrates Terrorist Attack at Luxury Airport," "Invisible Hero Saves Dozens of Hostages with Makeshift Military Tactics," "The Man No One Has Come to Arrive." The press tried to find out all about him. They searched files, social networks, work records. They found that Dwayne had served as a rescue operator in war zones, who had received awards he never mentioned, who had abandoned his military career after his wife's death in a tragic accident, determined to live away from the spotlight. Dwayne refused all interviews. Miguel, on the other hand, talked about him with child pride in all conversations. He didn't need a cover, no weapon. He just needed to promise me to come back, and came back. A few days later, Dwayne was called to a makeshift ceremony at the airport itself. There were authorities, journalists, security guards, and employees. The place still carried the marks of the tragedy, but there was something new there. Respect. When it arrived wearing the same uniform, now clean but still simple, the applause was automatic. But Dwayne didn't look for stages. It was only there because Miguel had asked him in person. On stage, the director of the security agency handed him a symbolic Medal of Civil Honor, but when he tried to speak, Dwayne raised his hand, asking for silence. "I thank you, but that wasn't about heroism. It was about not being stopped when a child's life is at risk. We can spend our entire lives being invisible, but that doesn't justify turning your back when someone needs you." Miguel took the stage and held Dwayne's hand. "He said he wasn't a hero, but it is. It's mine." After that, Dwayne did not return to the same post, asked for shutdown. He said he needed air, but it didn't leave completely. A month later, he reappeared with a new proposal: training young people to deal with emergency situations, forming volunteers in neglected communities, teaching those who have never had a chance. The airport named one of the evacuation rooms with his name. Miguel was going to visit him whenever he could, now with his parents, much more present than before. The little toy plane, with worn wings, was on the table of the new training room. Dwayne was never invisible again. Not because it became a celebrity, but because it came to be seen by those who really matter. It was not about fame, nor about glory. It was about presence, courage, and the decision to do what needs to be done, even when no one is looking.